Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me today on the Divine Messages podcast. My name is Karina, and I am a psychic medium out of Calgary, Alberta. Today on the podcast, I have one of my Reiki Master students and very good friends coming on with me. She is an incredible soul who is filled with light, but recently suffered an incredible loss that unfortunately changed her entire path that she once felt was laid out right in front of her. So, everyone, please help me welcome Shannon to the podcast. Shannon, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on, Karina.
I'm extremely grateful that you're here with me today because I know that this is not easy to share your story, but I feel like your story is going to help someone else out there. And that's why we're doing this.
Yeah, that was my intention I set before I got on this call today, was to allow my heart to open and to be as present as I can so that this story, can hopefully touch those that maybe can relate to what I'm living currently.
I believe it will. I have goosebumps from head to toe, and that is always our sign that it's truth, right? Truth resonates at such a high vibration that's why we get chicken skin and goosebumps and things like that. So we will just let this flow and see where it goes because spirit always leads the way, right?
Absolutely. Always.
All right, well, let's take everybody back in time, back to when we met. And I have been sitting here for days going, wait a second, how did this all happen? Because we're such good friends that it just was so effortless from the very start that I can't remember how it started. Isn't that crazy how that works, right?
It's incredible. I was doing the same thing, trying to think back to how long we've known each other. And it's probably 5-6 years ago that we met.
Is it only that? Oh my goodness. I wanted to say, this morning, oh, we've known each other for like 8 years. Like it just feels like, well, it feels like a lifetime. Obviously, we're soul sisters. And I know that because we really get each other. And I believe that, sometimes you meet people and you can just be yourself with, and that's when you're in the presence of your soul family, right? Because it just is effortless. So I want to say I've been in the place that I'm at for 5 years. So I would say, six years ago then, because we met when I was living in the other house in Chestermere.
On the Rainbow Street.
Yeah, that's right. I love that name.
I love it.
Oh, lovely. It was such a, this place where I live, where we moved to, even though it's cold and everybody knows that I would love out of Alberta, the city that I live in is very magical. There's something really wonderful about the energy here. So this is where you came to when we first did our first session. But actually, what's coming to me now is I believe I was at a group reading and your mother was at the, yes. Oh my gosh, Shannon, it's coming back to me now. Okay.
Yeah. And she came to me. So that would have been 6 years ago. My mom came to me after she experienced that reading and shared with me what came through. And it was a very life-changing moment. What came through in that reading for myself anyways. And I think for my mom as well. It was quite incredible.
Yes, I remember meeting her at that group reading. There was, I guess it was one of her friends, and who I am still good friends with that lady as well. And I think in that group session, I was just, I never know what happens in a group reading. It just, things start to come out, and I didn't know you. I just said to your mom, look, this is a message for you. And can you please tell your daughter? And from there, it was so personal and it was so specific that it led you to me. You ended up booking a session with me not long after that.
Yeah, I remember thinking, oh my gosh, can I share the story?
Absolutely, please do.
Because I think everyone in that room had no idea who you were connecting to at that moment, because an 8-year-old boy had come through, and nobody in that space had lost a young boy. And he started to talk about his sisters, his older sister named Izzy And that's when my mom's ears perked up and was like, what?
Ooh,
Why is this 8-year-old boy talking about my granddaughter?
right.
And he started talking about soccer that they were playing and how he would help her on the field, score goals. And then he started talking about his twin sister, Taylor. And that's when she put it together that this was her grandson. And, this grandson never took a breath. Like he had passed away in utero at around 6 months gestation. So nobody knew this grandson, but he showed up in that way because he'd been growing up beside Taylor all this time, right? And beside Busy,
Yeah.
and he was a part of our family from spirit, in that spirit realm. And that just changed everything for me because I hadn't done a lot of my healing. I hadn't really worked through any of the grief of that loss. I just kind of got thrown into life. And when I came and saw you, that's when I realized that I still had a lot of work to do when it comes to facing that loss.
Right.
And yeah, the reading that you gave me was just incredible. And that's what opened the door to our relationship, and to me feeling really drawn to take the Reiki Masters course from you, because I just felt so connected in that moment. It was like, yeah.
You trusted me, and I, trusted you back. We just instantly felt connected from that day because you had taken your Reiki level 1 and 2 years prior with someone else. And I didn't know you until that day. And it was in that moment where you're like, I actually do want to do my master's. I'm ready. And I want to take it from you. And I said, okay, perfect.
Yeah.
And from there, we just went on this journey of, I guess, just being in each other's lives. And we just, I don't know, somehow just clicked like that. It was effortless. And we felt really comfortable to kind of, I think, to just grow together, really.
Yeah.
And over the course of the, couple of years, you would come to mediumship classes. That's where we really started to get close, because you would come and I'd say, okay, I don't know, like I was hosting these classes actually in person back then, you remember?
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, come to the class. And you would show up to these classes and we just really, I guess, bonded. And I would watch you in class and I could always feel, and I'm, going to say this, but I could always feel when people were intimidated by you, because when I would give you all, something to practice on, and there you were, just writing, and all this information was flowing to you. And some of the others were getting frustrated because they were just getting one word or one thing. And I would say to everybody, look, you guys just relax. You can all do this. Your egos are just getting in the way, just calm down, breathe, and let it just flow and let it happen. And you would just get right in there, just all this information, blah, 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 blah. I was always so impressed with how much you trusted what was coming to you. And then through those classes, because we started to get closer, actually, I'm trying to remember how this went. I ended up coming to you because you're also a hairstylist.
Mhm.
And so you started to do my hair. And from there, we just built an even stronger bond, because I would come to see you, what was like every 5 weeks or so. And then we decided that we were going to trade our doing Reiki sessions, right?
Yeah.
Because again, well, and you know this, and I'm sure a lot of people that know me know this, I have a very difficult time letting go with people and trusting them. And especially when it comes to energy work, because I take energy work so seriously. I know what people are carrying. I know what baggage they have. And I am very particular of who I let put their hands on me energetically. And I knew without a doubt that I trusted you. And I said, absolutely, let's do this. And so we started doing Reiki practices or shares really on each other, not practices. Sorry, I take it back. So
we were clearing each other. We needed it.
we both
Yeah.
needed to have
Yeah.
this clearing done because the healers always forget to do healing on ourselves. So it was such a good reminder that we had. It was like, okay, let's do it. And I think we were doing it once a month for a while.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, we just book our date. You came in, we did like, 45 minutes to an hour on each other. And then it was like magical. We both needed it so badly. And then as we were doing these healings on each other, I kept saying to you, I know you're working as a stylist. I know you have a lot of clients, but you have to do this. This is who you are. Look at how amazing you are. And I think your fears were in the way of doing it. I think you were just, contemplating, do I have this? What are people going to think? And yet I laughed because you had this amazing healing room in your basement right beside your salon. And yet I think you questioned yourself so much, and I kept pushing you and pushing you. And I said to you one day at your house, and I'll never forget this, Shannon, all you have to do is just tell the universe that you're ready, that you're willing to be of service, and everything will fall into place. And as soon as you said, okay, I'm going to do this, you did your website, you, I think, created business cards because you gave me some of those. And next thing I know, the next time I see you, you're like, oh my God, I'm working, 2 to 3 appointments a day doing this and then doing hair, and I don't know how to do it all. And I said, whoa, okay. I said, say yes, but not to everyone. And so you were working nonstop, and it was getting really crazy. And both of us were working, so much that we would be each other's reminder. Okay, slow down, take a deep breath. And then COVID hit. And then both of us had to go on to doing Zoom appointments and phone sessions and things like that, which I'm very grateful for. And I know you were grateful for. But then I believe you all got COVID in December of 2020, right? From that COVID time, December 2020, I remember in about March or so, you had come to me and said, I don't think Scott, who is your husband, is doing okay. Something's wrong, Karina. And I remember you coming to me, and I'll let you share the next part if that's okay. But I do remember you coming to me and saying something's wrong. I think he needs to get something healed or looked at. So,
yeah. So you're talking about 2020 when we were having that conversation. This wasn't last year, right? This was
2020.
Yeah, 2020. Okay. Yeah, I'd been doing regular Reiki treatments on Scott, and I'm sure you can relate to this, but when you do any kind of intuitive work or healing work on close family members and friends, sometimes it can be, sometimes you're just too close to it. And so even if you are receiving message or getting some clarity about things, you really question it, or you maybe don't trust it.
Absolutely.
And, I had heard something quite scary and had kind of shoved it away. And and all I kept hearing repeatedly was there's something really serious happening. Something's going on. He needs an MRI. He needs to take the next step in his own journey of health and figure out what's going on. And it didn't matter how many times I told him something serious is really happening. Something's going on in your body. You need to get some help. You need to go for this MRI. That's all I kept hearing. And, further investigation needs to be had here. I wasn't getting a clear, you
answer.
Have this. I wasn't getting a clear answer. And I think that's probably why I came to you, like, what's going on? He's not listening to me. He wasn't hearing me. He wasn't ready to face whatever was going on in his body. And then, early last year, he got really sick He started having night sweats. He started losing a bunch of weight. He wasn't sleeping. And that's when my anger just got to a degree of like seriousness, like you can't tell people what to do. You can't make them do something they don't want to do. But
Right.
I finally said, like, what is it going to take? You need to go to the hospital. And he finally went to his doctor, and the doctor made him go to the hospital. So, if
Wow.
I say this now, like if I wore a white coat, he might have heard me. He might have listened to me, but I
Hmm.
didn't. And I think that plays into a lot of my insecurities around really choosing to step into this work, was that I was, maybe not being validated and heard in the ways that I needed to in my personal life. You know what I mean? And it's like,
I do.
it's really hard to trust it and to step into it. Um, yeah, when you're not feeling supported in your current situation. So, anyways, when he went to the hospital, that's when we got some pretty devastating news that he in fact had cancer growing in his left chest wall area, and it was very advanced. It was quite progressed, and um, the journey moving forward was going to be a challenge. And so it was March of last year when he had surgery and was in the hospital for 10 days recovering from the surgery. They removed a tumor the size of a grapefruit
Wow.
from his rib cage, and yeah, this was still COVID time, so he was in the hospital 10 days by himself. Um, no family was allowed to visit.
I remember.
Thank goodness for FaceTime calls, but yeah, he made some friends. He made some good friends in the hospital who helped him and supported him. So
Came home.
yeah, when he came home from the hospital, we were all feeling lighter, thinking, okay, step one, we got the cancer out. It hadn't spread to the body, throughout the body. So we were feeling, optimistic. The unfortunate part about having intuition, and this information, hasn't really been shared with many people, but when I got off the phone with the surgeon, when he was still in the hospital, he had said, he thinks he got it all, and things are looking good. He should be home in about 10 days. When I got off the phone with that surgeon, I heard that my husband had 9 months.
Oh my gosh, Shannon, my hair on my legs standing.
Yeah. And in that moment, I thought, nope, I didn't hear that. Nope, I'm going to be
Oof.
positive. We're going to change this path. We're going to do whatever we need to do to, to heal this cancer, to heal his journey. And I just didn't want to hear it. I wanted to unhear that. You know what I mean?
Mhm. I get it.
So this whole like intuitive mediumship skill that one can develop can be a burden sometimes because you don't want to hear these things when they come through. You know that if they've allowed you to hear these things, they're trying to prepare you for what's coming, right? But you also think, what do I do with that information? What
I
do I?
always say that too, right? It's like some people
Mhm.
view it as such a gift. And I say, yes, to a degree, it's a gift, but there are so many times, and I know you can understand this with what you just said, we can also see it as a curse in a way, because there's things that we don't want the heads up on, and yet they know they have to give it to us. And, that doesn't make it any easier for someone who has the little insight into our worlds and our families. And it just makes it really scary.
It makes it really scary, for sure. I know. And, you know, at that time, I've always been a believer in some of Dr. Joe Dispenza's work.
Mhm.
He has multiple testimonies of people who choose the mindfulness path to heal their bodies. But his mantra is change your energy, change your life. And so changing your energy requires stepping into a dedicated mindfulness practice and changing who you are, and in order to heal the body. And so I was, of course, preaching, and this was never received very well by my husband. I needed to really, that was my lesson. Like, I needed to really learn how to reach him in a way that he felt was his idea, not mine. If that makes any sense. But
it totally makes sense.
So yeah, I was presenting him with this idea that Joe Dispenza could be the answer. We could go this route. But again, it's not something that our medical system is currently aware of, or if they are, they're not allowed to speak of it, because when Scott would have these conversations with the oncologist, like, do you know any stories of people who have had these radical remissions where the cancer just goes away? And every doctor he asked all said no. Nope, wow. Nope, that doesn't happen. That is not possible. That is not a reality. Here's what we can offer you. And it's radiation, it's chemotherapy, it's drugs. They don't have the knowledge of the alternatives and what can manifest in one's story with cancer if they choose. And so Scott did choose to go the chemotherapy route, and we just watched him deteriorate and fade away from the drugs. It was awful. It was inhumane to witness someone you love, just get sicker and sicker from the drugs, from the chemotherapy drugs we were giving him. It wasn't the cancer at this stage. The cancer had been removed. We did find out that the cancer was coming back 6 weeks later, but I believe his symptoms were from the drugs. They were killing him, and I know that cancer kills us as well, but I feel like the way that we treat cancer is backwards. It doesn't make any sense to me, especially knowing, after attending Dr. Joe Dispenza's week-long retreat just last month, understanding how disease manifests in the body and how we can actually change the genetic code. We can change it. I believe it wholeheartedly now, and I just wish so much that we could have chosen a different path. But when Scott felt that the chemo wasn't working, he did decide to start trying these meditations. We downloaded the progressive and the intensive workshops, and he was blessing his energy centers daily in his meditations, but he was also very tired and very sick. So it was hard to focus. It was hard to actually do the work.
And I think it's hard to believe in that moment when you're not feeling good like that. It's,
well, you have to, it's really hard.
That faith. Yeah.
You have to be able to overcome your body and the pain and the emotion attached to that in order to believe in a future that doesn't really exist yet. Because that's what you're telling your body in these meditations, is that I am healed, I am well, I am whole. You have that remembering of what we really are. We are just spirit in this human body having this human experience, and you're in this moment of suffering. Like, that can be healed,
Yeah.
and he was starting to understand that. He was starting to get to a place of awakening, let's call it. And I never
Yes.
thought I would ever see that shift in my husband, because
I know we've talked about that for
'cause
years.
he had a lot of resistance, and he had a lot
He
of
did.
just closed to the idea that there was anything greater than what we see here in this dimension of time and space.
It is hard to understand, you know.
It's hard. I think it's hard for majority, like we are not taught that we are energy. We are not taught that, um, unless you maybe are raised in a religious upbringing, you don't hear about spirit. You don't hear about something greater than yourself. And why would you attach to any of that belief, right? So
It's true. I know we had a really hard time with trying to believe. It wasn't that, and he was so supportive of you. Like that's what I loved about him, was he was so supportive, but it was more like, you do you, and
go do you.
I'll sit over here. And
here.
yeah, and Nick
Yeah.
was the very same in the beginning. And I remember having multiple conversations with you about Nick and how I felt he would also do the same, like, you do you, but I'll just sit over here because I don't understand it. And now he's definitely in a different place of understanding, and he does believe, which
Yeah.
is incredible. But I know that Scott just couldn't get to that full belief.
Yeah.
And then as he was going through that chemo and the radiation, and I know you and I were talking quite a bit, and you were saying he's not okay.
Yeah. Yeah, he was just fading quickly. It really did get a hold of him quite fast. And there was a time where he was like, okay, we got to get to one of these week-long Joe Dispenza retreats. I'm ready.
Aww.
And he was so sick, there was no way he could have traveled. And every time we would try to book something, COVID would interfere and get in the way. And we just had so many closed doors in our face. And yeah, when it came to the end, he was actually starting to mentally, I could see him growing some strength mentally with each meditation he was doing, and with more understanding with this progressive and the intensive workshop. I could see things shifting in him. His vocabulary was changing. His ideas of the world and life and what it all meant to him was starting to change. And he was starting to feel stronger in that mental sense. His physical body was still, it was going downhill, but his mind was changing. And he got a phone call in September from the oncologist, just informing him that the CT scan doesn't look good, the chemo doesn't seem to be working. We don't really have any other options here. And Dr. Joe Dispenza talks a lot about accepting the diagnosis from these doctors, accepting prognosis. When somebody tells you something, especially devastating like that, you have a choice to make. You can choose to believe it, or you can choose not to. And in that moment, Scott chose to believe that all hope was lost, and it was over. There was no more options for him. He chose to take that as truth. And 2 weeks later, he was gone. That's how quick
my hair.
That's how quick it can change. Your mind can change.
You accept it.
His body completely took a turn. His mind, he just couldn't.
He gave up.
He couldn't get a hold of it. Yeah, it was. It was fact for him. Whatever that doctor said to him that day changed everything. And I don't think that doctors realize how powerful their words are in these moments of detriment. Yes, you have terminal cancer. Yes, things don't seem to be improving at this time, but it took a long time for you to get to this place. It's going to take time to heal it and to come out of it. You're trying to overcome yourself. You're trying to overcome your patterns, your beliefs,
Right.
the ideas, and he just needed more time. And yeah, when he heard that news,
He
it
just
changed everything.
2 weeks,
Mhm.
and we also have a fellow Reiki master student in the group of ours. And I did a whole episode about her. I think this is probably like last year or maybe the year before. And it was called, oh my gosh, if I can remember, sorry, there's 85 episodes at this point, but I believe it was You Can Heal Your Body or Pay Attention to Your Body. I'll have to figure out that actual name of it. But
Mhm.
anyways, the point is that I talked about her journey in that episode because she had also been given extremely bad news that there was no hope. You have X amount of months to live. And she decided the opposite. Okay, that's what I've been told. Watch me. I'm going to heal this. And she went on a path of healing herself through her thoughts, through her foods that she ate. Really, it was her mindset, she said.
Mhm.
And she did heal breast cancer. And I believe it was stage 3 or 4. Like she was really not okay. And she healed her life because she chose a different path. And I will say, and I think it's important to say, there are times where we are meant to leave and we get called back home, and we can't change certain exit plans. I believe
Yeah.
through our physical existence, we have exit points that we can either choose to take or we can take another one. So say I say to you, okay, Shannon, so and so's exit point is either at 35, 65, or 95. They can decide to go home at any of those 3 points. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so that's how these miracle stories happen. Even though she was told this, she could have taken that exit plan at this time, but she chose, no, I'm not going to. I'm going to take the one furthest from now. And she chose to heal it.
Yeah.
I hope that makes sense to people out there. But
She chose to love her life.
yeah,
I
she
think
did.
I think these diagnoses are just little wake up calls, and I totally agree with the written in the stars term. Like I do believe we have multiple. Maybe there are 3 exit plans. Maybe there's more. I don't know.
There are more sometimes. Yes.
Sometimes it depends on the contract signed, but I think that yeah, there is free will in some of these stories that we are presented with for sure. And
Mhm.
yeah, we have to choose to do the healing, do the work, or maybe there's work on the other side that needs to be done. And I believe that if it wasn't for the belief system that I have, um, I wouldn't be where I am right now. My grief journey has been a difficult one, but because I have the understanding of what we really are and why we're here and what our purpose is in life, and we all have a different purpose, but I think I was able to get to acceptance a lot quicker on this path. And I know that a lot of people can get really hung up and caught up in grief when we don't have this understanding, when you believe that they're really gone and they're not really here with us. I feel Scott all the time. I'm connected to him always. And as hard as it's been to say goodbye, especially, watching his 2 kids go through what they're going through and his family, I have this beautiful gift of connection with him. And I feel like I'm parenting with him in a whole other space, in a whole other way. I know he's always got my back. I ask for help all the time.
Yeah.
um,
And he
we
shows
have,
you.
and
He
he
tells
shows
you.
me, he shows up all the time in so many magical ways. And that's really helped my healing journey, just knowing that he's not gone. He's just in a different space, right? He's in a whole new,
Different realm. And yet
yeah.
that realm is so vibrant and beautiful. And they really are able to connect to us. I remember after he passed that I knew that he was going to come to me because of our connection. And I thought, oh God. And I went into fear mode of, I don't know how I can do this. I know that, how do I say this? I was a part of the journey of him fading away. And it made it difficult for me to think that, oh gosh, what if he finds me and I have to tell her and connect with him for you? I don't know why I was so fearful of it. I remember saying that to you at one point, and you and I had tried to book a time for you to come for a reading. And I don't even know what happened. I remember it not happening. And I think I'm the one who energetically pushed it away because I was scared. You know, I love you and I have been a part of the whole journey. And so that made it too personal for me almost.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if I could do the work without putting emotion into it, because I have to turn that emotion off in a session. People need me to be their rock. And if I crumble, how is that going to be helpful? And I knew that there was going to come a time that he was going to keep bugging me and that I was going to have to be the channel because he knew that you would trust me.
Yeah. And he sure did come through.
I think, how many months later did you come to me?
I think
After
I came
he
to you
passed.
in January. So like 3 months later.
Okay, 3 months later. And I remember you walking into my house and I looked at your face and I went, oh God, give me the strength to do this. And I had to try to get out of my head and just channel. I had to just channel. And he did. He came through, and as difficult as it was, he would try to lighten the mood. He actually said something very personal to us, and we don't have to share it, but it was something that nobody, Shannon, nobody knew about your lives and about him. And we both got a good chuckle out of it. We laughed for quite a while. And it did. He knew that you needed that in order to not only trust that it was him because I know you trust me, but we all need that solid proof when we are talking to the other side, or when you go to a reading. We don't want to just hear they miss you, they love you, those kind of generic messages. We want the proof. And he knew that he had to give you that, exact proof, but it was something that was so funny that he knew it would make you smile and you would leave there with a little bit of lightness in your heart rather than a heavy feeling. And even when we would see each other after, we still joke about that thing because it's funny. And it made you smile, and he knew exactly what you needed.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah, he knew we needed a good laugh.
He did. Because it was pretty heavy up until that point. And then we both broke out laughing. And it was like, oh my God, I can't believe we're sitting here laughing. But that's who he was. He would never want you to sit there and just mourn and grieve and cry. And he's not like that. He would never want you to just suffer. So he did actually try to lighten the mood and change it up. And thank God he did, and it was valid proof of something so personal that I could never possibly know, or anyone else for that matter. So,
oh my God, should we share it, or
it's totally up to you. It is personal. So if you feel guided to, by all means, share away.
Oh, he's so funny. So, okay, I'm going to share it because I think it was really cute.
I'm still going to laugh. Okay.
So yeah, he was showing you his hairy chest, right? Remember, the image was like him and I laying in bed together, and I was rubbing his hairy chest. And then he rolled over and I was rubbing his back.
Yeah.
And Scott had a very large protruding mole on the like the lower left side of his back, and it was an area that I always kind of skimmed over or I missed. And it grew multiple hairs out of it. It was like, it had a life of its own, this little mole on the back. And I think there was times where, when he's going to kill me for sharing this part probably, but on holidays, like before we go on a holiday, he'd always have me shave his back and shave the little hairs that would come out of the mole. Anyways, Karina is giving this reading to me, and she's showing me her eyes are closed, and she gets to this area on the back, and her whole body goes, she's like, why is he showing me this mole on his back? And I think we started howling. I'm like, why would he show you that? That is so strange. But yes, he did have this giant mole on his back that I would always kind of avoid. And I think at one point I made a comment like, you can like get these removed, right? And he's like, well, whatever. Why would I get it removed? Because I don't see it, right? He didn't care about this mole, but
oh my God. And I remember I did have my eyes closed, and I was kind of like, he was showing me his body, and I was like, okay, and I got to this part and I went, whoa, what is this? And then we both started laughing, and he goes, but that's how you felt about it. And again, he showed it because nobody could possibly know that. And he really wanted you to know that this, not that you didn't believe, of course you believed, but it was extra validation. And we both sat and laughed just as we are now about it. And he knew that would be something that going forward, every time you did perhaps get into a place of sadness or grief overtaking you, that you could remember that little piece that would just bring a smile to your face. And I love that. I love that he did that, because it's never happened in another reading ever like that. So it was like he knew what you needed, and that shows how strong he is, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm really glad that you could come on here today and share that journey of how connected you are to him still, so that you don't feel so alone parenting. And even though, and I say this all the time, we will always miss the physical presence, but when we have that feeling of their spiritual presence and the energy that surrounds us and the things that they can move things. That's how strong they are. They can flicker lights on and off, turn TVs on and off, show up in songs on a radio. There's so many ways that they can get through to us and show us that they exist, that in itself, at least for me as a medium, is very comforting. And that's why I do this kind of work. And I know you do this kind of work as well, to help others understand that energy does exist.
I'm so grateful for it. I'm so grateful for you. I'm grateful to have the connection and the bond that I do have with him in this way. And anybody can have it, when we're in grief, I don't think we can see past the end of our noses sometimes. I think we get really stuck in the darkness and the heaviness of it. And that's not what they want for us. Yes, it's sad and it's hard that they have left, but it's also such a beautiful thing when we can open ourselves up to the idea that they're still like all around us. They're everywhere. They're in everything. And they're full of like unconditional love. And why wouldn't we want to tap into that? Why wouldn't we want to
still communicate
with that? And yes, seeing a medium means you get that confirmation, but we all have this ability. We all have it.
We sure do.
It's within all of us. And so
that's what I keep trying to tell people.
If that can be the message today, it's, we are all going to have hard stuff in our lives, and we're all going to lose someone at some point in our lives. And grief can be a gift. It can really push us in directions of tremendous growth, and it can open us up to something much greater, which is why we came here. We came here to remember what we are, who we are, why we're here. And I think, unfortunately, loss and death is what can get us there, what can kind of open that up for us. And Yeah.
Help us
It
to
will
find that light.
help us to find the light. Exactly.
Mhm. When I saw you in January, I knew that you were just broken at that time. Who wouldn't be? But when obviously I've seen you a few times, quite a few times since. And the last time I saw you, I looked at you and I said, oh my gosh, like I know you've had a very difficult time, obviously. But when I looked at you, I saw light and I saw hope and I saw you again. And I feel like that the reason that you are so strong and full of that light is because you are co-parenting with him from the other side, and that you're very aware of it. And that's amazing for me to see. And that's why I wanted you to come on here today to inspire others as you inspire me to keep going and to find that light and to know that grief does come in stages, but if we connect to the other side and we know that they exist and how real it is, it helps it to be not so painful and so strong.
Absolutely. It really does. That was beautiful.
What you've said is beautiful. So I want to leave you all with this today. None of us are promised tomorrow. All we have is this very present moment. So try to make it count. Do everything in life that you want to do. Live as if there were no tomorrow and love the ones you cherish even harder. I want to thank you all so much for joining us today on the Divine Messages podcast. And Shannon, thank you so, so much for sharing your journey with us.
Thank you for having me on, Karina. I'm grateful.
I'm grateful as well. If you would like to book a reading with me, I can be reached at www.divinemessages.ca or on Instagram at Divine Messages 333 or at the Divine Messages Podcast, as well as on Facebook under Divine Messages or the Divine Messages Podcast. Please bear in mind that the perspectives and opinions represented in this podcast are based solely on the Divine Messages interpretations. We can in no way be held responsible for the actions of our followers.